All right, everyone, you're being recorded, so no funny business. And we're going to share Beth's screen. We'll do that. Van was just asking a question in the chat. We don't require all of your buyers and sellers' contact information. I mean, hopefully you have that information somewhere in case you get hit by a bus. But the company, we're not building a database of your client's emails or contact information or anything like that. I mean, that's pretty much between you and your client. But yeah, someone will need to, reach your clients if anything happens to you, but we're not requiring that information on the forms. I know some prior companies that we were all a part of might have done that, but we don't. Anyway, I'm gonna let Beth sort of take over at this point.
I'm sorry, Bill, you cut out, at least on my end, for a minute with your audio. What do you not require that other companies did?
Names and phone numbers, like on the buyer and seller agreements or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do I get my Skyslope screen to pop up?
Can anyone see Beth's Skyslope screen? I just wanted to make sure that we're sharing the screen properly. Can someone respond and tell me if you can see Beth's Skyslope screen?
Yes, we can see it, or I can see it.
Thank you, folks. Okay.
And I want to live there. 200,000 on Mickey Mouse Road. Yes.
So what I'm trying to accomplish with this class is just maybe give some of you a better understanding of how to split your documents. If you've got questions about what should be on the documents, by all means ask. I have a list of some common areas that people often don't realize need to be filled out. So I've entered as if this is a listing already. And so then I'm going to go to the checklist. These are all the required items for a listing. For the sake of expediency, I've already uploaded the documents into the documents folder. You'll see two separate scans that I did, because once I show you how to get the documents into the checklist for the listing, then I'm going to show you how to turn it into a transaction, because that's one of the other things that I see is people will make a listing, and then when it goes under contract, they then make a transaction, and you don't do that. You go, whenever you have a listing and it goes under contract, you go from the checklist. So I'm going to split the documents. Oops, sorry, wrong ones. Not the bottom ones.
And I think Beth mentioned, I'll probably interject 100 times during the class, but something that Beth mentioned doesn't always happen. It needs to happen is agents are, they're uploading a bunch of documents and then not splitting them and putting 10 documents into the listing agreement field instead of splitting out just the listing agreement. So it makes her job a lot harder when she's doing compliance, because she has to cycle through, so in this case, 17 documents, because they uploaded everything to one item on the checklist, so that the document scan and upload all the documents to
Is anyone talking?
Carol, I can hear you.
Is anyone saying anything or are we frozen?
We're not,
We're not frozen that we know of. Is anyone else?
I can't hear anything.
I can hear what sounds like Bill in the background, but he's right there, so I don't know.
Can you- can anybody hear me?
I
Yeah.
hear you
Yeah.
fine.
Okay, I don't know.
Bill, you're not there.
Okay.
Bill's sitting in on my computer with me.
With Van.
I've switched,
This is Beth.
I've actually switched computers.
Okay, this is Bill. Can anyone hear me?
Bill, you are muffled. Very muffled.
Very muffled. Okay.
That was better for a second.
Oh.
Oh, I hear you umming.
Is this better now?
Nope.
Okay. Hold on one second. I'm gonna go to a different room.
Apparently, this is Beth. Apparently, Bill's and my computers are too close to each other and we're muffling each other. So did any of you hear what I had said previously?
Nope. You said something about split and then that was the end.
All right. Can anyone hear me now?
Yes, that's great.
Unfortunately, I hear you loud and clear.
Yes.
Okay, I think it was a problem, Beth and I being in the same room. I apologize. I was interrupting Beth to mention, just in case nobody heard me, that it's very important that you split these documents before you upload them to the checklist, because a lot of times that isn't happening and it makes Beth's job a lot harder when you don't do that. So anyway, Beth, take it back away.
Okay, so you guys can hear me okay now?
Yes.
Okay, so here we are with the Form 3. As you guys do it, and probably a lot of you already know, you can start to type something and it will pick it up. So like I just typed in FOR for form and the right choice comes up. So it's from page 1 to page 1, and here is the page. Next document is the synopsis. And for a listing, you always need to upload either the private detail report or the private customer synopsis. And the reason for that is down at the bottom here, it gives your listing date, your expiration date, the amount, the commission percent that you put in the MLS, and the amount you put under the transaction broker. Those are 2 items that you have to have, and the transaction broker percent is often missed. It often is just skipped out and there's nothing there. You do have to put something, and because this company's policy is it's somewhere between 1% and 2%, you got to put something between 1% and 2% there. I also, one of the things that I will check when I go through your listing is that the listing date on the MLS sheet, and so therefore what's in the MLS is what's on your listing agreement. And oftentimes those are different. And I will send you a message saying you need to update your date somehow, whether you contact the MLS and get them to change it, or you just change it on your listing agreement. That's, that part's your choice, how you handle it, but they have to be the same. And I think a lot of people, when they're putting their listings in, they don't really look at the listing date. They just leave it the date that they're actually doing it, even though maybe the listing should have been the day before. So this one is is from page 2 to 2. Whoops, sorry about that. The listing agreement is page 3, 4, and 5. Page 6 is a property disclosure. And the property disclosure is a big one that things are missed. Whether you're the listing agent or the buyer agent, every single line, unless there are instructions that are on the property disclosure that tell you you can strike out certain sections, everything needs to be answered. Whether it's a none, whether it's an NA because it's not applicable, whether it's just checked off saying unknown. In the water, under the water, if you have public water, then you have to answer the malfunction section and the water test section. I know a lot of people have thought that they didn't need to fill that out since it is public water. But, excuse me, as Bill has mentioned several times, the water quality for public water can be bad. Think Flint, Michigan. So it does need to be filled out. If it's private water, then you need to check off whether it's a drilled well, a dug well, or other. The malfunctions.
Beth?
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know if you were still talking, but yeah, your microphone's very sensitive. When you move outside of the center of your screen, we lose audio, so.
Oh, okay. Didn't know that.
Yep.
If it's a private system, you still have to answer the malfunction section and the water test. And then obviously the rest of it to do with the private water. Under the wastewater disposal, if it's public, then you do need to answer the if public or quasi-public section. If it's private, you don't have to answer that section. You've got to fill out, even though it seems redundant on the leach field, the dates installed, who installed it, could be different people. Excuse me. If you don't have the answers to that, either you either find out the answers or you just put unknown, because by not answering it, in some cases you might be doing your buyer or your seller a disservice by not having all of the information. Does anybody have any questions about these sections at this point?
I have a question, and this might be is well known, but can you go back to the part where you were talking about the listing date on the exclusive right to sell must match up with the listing date on MLS?
Yeah.
Where is that on the form?
It's on your listing agreement.
Okay.
Is that what
Yeah.
you're asking me?
Yes.
Yeah, no, a lot of times agents do that. They'll list something and then maybe they don't get it in the MLS till the next day or something like that. I mean, it's usually just like off by a day. But whatever your listing agreement says is exactly what has to be in the MLS. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And I'll just mention, Beth covered it, but there is a distinct difference between none and NA, not applicable, on the disclosures. And it might be a subtle difference, but again, every line has to be filled in and have something on it. So sometimes the answer will be a lot of times agents put NA when what they really mean is none. Like if something doesn't apply, then it doesn't apply. But just because you don't know, or let's say, chimney cleaned, sometimes an agent will put NA. Well, no, the chimney cleaned. I mean, if there's not a chimney, then it's NA. But if you've already answered yes, there's a chimney, but maybe it wasn't cleaned, well, that's not an NA, that's a none, or has not been cleaned, or whatever. But so just make sure that you're using the right vernacular, I guess, when you when you fill out some of those lines that don't really have any information.
Right, I often see under source of section, whatever section it is, where you need to put where your source was from. I see NA there quite often, and I have to go back to that person and say it cannot be NA because you're getting your information from somewhere.
I have a
Yeah.
question.
Usually
So,
the seller, but
yeah, can we use a town website for public water?
what do you mean a town website for public water?
Well, usually town websites will have a water test, because aren't they required to do a water test periodically?
That's true. That section is mostly asking if the sellers had it tested, but most certainly, yeah, any public water system is subject to, government testing and that sort of thing. We're not really responsible to go out and get that. You certainly could if you want to, but that section's really just asking if the sellers performed any testing themselves.
Okay.
So the next section on the property disclosure is the heating section. And if you put something in that section, whether it's, you put forced hot water, forced air, whether it's a monitor, whether it's radiant, whatever type of heating system you have, you are supposed to fill out the whole grid underneath that system. You might not have had any service calls, in which case you can write that rather than just leave it blank. Annual consumption, you should be contacting wherever they get their fuel from or their electricity, whatever it is, you should be putting something in there. If there's malfunctions, you can say no, if there was or if there wasn't. Sometimes it's just a service call for cleaning. Oftentimes whether the fuel lines are buried and if there are fuel lines and if they're sleeved, those are missed quite often. Again, as Bill said, with the chimney, if there is a chimney, then you do need to finish answering the rest of those questions. If there's a power vent, same thing. The hazardous materials, everyone is pretty good about answering whether there are hazardous materials, but they often don't put the source of information. I think you guys just kind of skip right over it at times. Lead-based paint on page 5. It's just answering the questions there, anything to do with paint. The other hazardous materials. Section 5, general information, towards the bottom, page 5. Oftentimes people answer one or the other of the questions there, but sometimes they don't answer both, and they both do need to be answered. And how they are answered will determine if you have to explain what the reasoning is. For example, on the first one, is property subject to the benefit of any encroachments, easements, right-of-ways, blah, blah, blah. If yes, you have to explain what it is. If you're not positive how to read the deed, which isn't necessarily what you have to do, you at least need to put in there, restrictions or easements per deed, so that then it can be referenced to the deed. The second one is access by means of a way owned and maintained by the state, county, or municipality over which the public has a right to pass. Basically, that's just asking, is it a public road? Yes or no? And if it's no, who's responsible for the maintenance? Is there a road association? Is there a name of a road association? On page 6, oftentimes the equipment lease section isn't filled in. And oftentimes they may have a propane tank or a satellite dish, something that they're in essence leasing from an outside company. Pretty much the rest of that page, everybody gets correct. I haven't really seen too many issues with that. And then often on the last page, where it asks if there are any attachments explaining current problems, past repairs, or additional information, yes or no, people often miss that question as well. So, I mean, again, that's just a matter of making sure that everything is filled in one way or another. So now when you go to split it, you're going to go from page 6 to page 12. This, for the assessors, I forget what it's called, assessor's card. It's not the tax bill. A lot of people think that they can just put the tax bill in. It's not. It's either the assessor information from Vision, Government Solutions, which we all use for a lot of the towns around. It might be the actual assessor's card that you might have gotten from the town. It could even be the realist information from the MLS. Those are all ways to come up with the information to put under assessor's card.
Bill would like to clarify, however, the sole purpose really of this being there, besides hopefully having some verification source independent from your seller of, hopefully square footage, acreage, stuff like that, in case we ever ran into a problem, like where did you get this information, the age of the house. Hopefully agents are not skipping the step of going to the town hall. I mean, back when Skyslope sort of first started or whatever, I mean, the only place maybe you could get this information was by going to the town hall. Now, most of the towns, have all this information readily online, but that doesn't mean as an agent, you should just be like, oh, great, I can grab, something from Vision and upload it. And now my ass is covered, so to speak. You still need to be going to the town hall, looking in the code file for anything that needs to be disclosed. And the same goes for a buyer's agent, and maybe even more importantly, for a buyer's agent, because maybe that listing agent has skipped the step of going to the town hall. And as hopefully everyone knows, as a buyer agent, we are just as responsible for all of that information on the property disclosure. If something doesn't look right, if we haven't verified, if it doesn't, pass the sniff test, they say the basement's never flooded, but you can see the high water mark on the furnace where it rusted, because they had water. You need to be going to the town hall to check the code file. There's been a few times where I had buyers that really were on top of everything and wanted to be involved in everything. I sent them to the town hall because they just wanted to, visit the town hall for the town they were potentially going to live in, meet some people, talk to some people. I said, well, while you're there, checking out information about the town, take a look in the code file. And if you see anything in there that, raises a red flag for you, get a copy of it, let me know. So that's the real reason for the assessor's card is it's supposed to be part of the town hall check that you're doing. But anyway, I'll let Beth continue.
No, that's all good information. So again, it's just however many pages you've got. Putting them in. This is just the deed. Obviously, I don't have a deed for Mickey Mouse Road. And then the lead paint disclosure. It's making sure where this is on the listing side is just making sure you've got all the information, the check marks under the, can't remember what it's called. The sellers section, checking off both two different areas that have to be checked off because there are times that's missed as well. And then making sure that not only your client signs it, but also you as the agent. And then you just hit the split and assign. And now you can go to your checklist. And they're all here for me to take a look at. So we will assume, we're going to assume that these are all good and I give the green light on all of them. And then you go under contract. So you're going to always come here when you have a listing and hit accepted contract. The only time that you go when you start initially from the what I call the dashboard page in Skyslope, when you first sign in and to create a transaction is when you, right from the get-go, you start with a buyer that's under contract. That's when you create a separate transaction. But when you have a listing, you go from the checklist and click off the accepted contract. And then you have to put in the information here, the checklist type. It's a listing that's under contract, the sale price, the acceptance date. That was July 23rd. The closing date, I'm saying it was August 31st.
While Beth's going through this, and she can correct me if I'm wrong, but you will see fields that don't have the red star asterisk, that they're not required fields. Some of these are just fields that other Skyslope companies use or whatever. If there's not a red asterisk next to it, then we don't have to have it. Certainly, you know, I'm going to make a note. We would like to try to get the source and the office lead fields to be mandatory, just because that's super useful information for us. But is that correct, Beth? You're not there's no fields that aren't listed as required that you're
Correct. No.
dinging people for.
No, they're all, but I mean, I will say that when I put documents in for either you when I do yours or other agents that I do work for, I oftentimes will fill out on the commission tab, which you can't see yet, but whether we're holding the escrow or not.
Okay.
Even though that's not required, I do answer it because it is easier for Shelley sometimes to know.
Sure.
I had to go back and change the acceptance date because I guess when I was making my fake purchase and sales agreement, I future dated it from 2 days from now and it won't accept that. So we're going to pretend the acceptance date is today's date. We've got the seller information already here. Daffy Duck and see, he's the buyer, and we don't require a phone number or an email address here. If the buyer, this is one of the things, if the buyer or the seller for that matter is either a company or a trust or an estate, you do want to check this one off and put, say, you know, Daffy Duck, personal rep for estate of John Doe in here, rather than just putting them in the buyer's first and last name. And as some people have found, if you do click that off, sometimes you can't get out of this screen without putting something under company name because there's an asterisk. So all I do is just put an asterisk. If you did that by mistake and you checked it off and then you couldn't get back out of it. I have seen that, and people have actually reached out to me to ask how you get out of it. This is the only way that I know of. And click save. We don't have to have the title or the escrow or the attorney information. If you want to put it in, there's no, you know, that doesn't hurt anything, but you don't have to. The agent representing the other side. Yeah, we do have to put that in. And the broker's company, if it's us, I just put in the initials. It's easier. Shelley knows what it is. And she's the one that actually oftentimes needs that information. And click save. You don't have to do any of the rest of this information if you don't want to. The more information that you put in, the better off your file is, but you don't have to do it. And then we just hit submit. Again, this is where your sale price is, your commission, if you needed to change it. If you, for whatever reason, decided to just go with flat dollar amounts, you can make the changes here. Down
Beth, I have a
under,
question. Beth, I have a question under the commission. So obviously and I should know this if I actually did my own Skyslope, but I pay Beth to do it. But when you have a buyer, obviously we don't necessarily know the full listing commission. Is that a required field?
no, that's blocked out when we're working with just a buyer.
Okay.
The only
Okay.
commission tab that comes, or area comes up is the sale commission.
Okay, gotcha.
This is the section I was talking about that sometimes it's helpful for Shelley. If it's not a required field, not at least at this point, but it may be at some point. So if we're gonna hold the money, you know, it's not a bad thing to fill it out. You can put the date of the check. Obviously, you guys don't have that. And honestly, I don't know for sure whether Shelley even uses this section. I don't think she does. If you have a referral, you would need to fill out this section anyway, all the referral details that you have. If there's no referral, you don't have to fill that out. But if you have an external referral, you're going to choose obviously external. If it's coming from an inside agent, then you'll go with internal. Add their information, the brokerage name. I don't know all of the times that you would have to have a W-9. I know that there are sometimes you've got to get that.
I'll cut in there. There is, to my knowledge, there's no instance where you need a W-9. And this is anytime one corporation is paying another corporation or an individual that's incorporated or has an LLC, whatever. A W-9 is not required. A lot of companies are not aware of tax law. So a lot of times you'll have referred something, and before the company pays us or you, through us, they'll be asking for a W-9. You can just email me or Beth or Shelley. We have a W-9 that we can give to you to give to that company who doesn't know they don't need it. But again, it's not required for tax purposes when one company's paying another. It's just an expense. W-9s are only required for paying individuals who are not incorporated in any form. So that's just a Skyslope thing that's in there. We can't get them to take it out just for us, but that's not actually required. I would say only do this referral section if you're referring to an outside company. If you're just splitting something like 50-50 with another agent in the company, or you're giving someone who helped you out 20% of the deal or something, you could just put that under notes if you wanted. That's not really technically a referral. That's more of a just instructing Shelley how to break down the commission that we're getting. But that's all I'll say on that, I guess.
So does that not apply to like Op City if it's an Op City referral?
That's an Op City referral. Yeah.
Oh,
That I mean, that would be a referral to Op City. But again, we don't need a W-9 from Op City or anything like that. But
you do need to put the information in, because that is one that often Shelley isn't aware of, and she has to kind of track down the information on it.
Oh, absolutely.
all right, thanks.
Okay, so that's pretty much everything. If you had a personal deal that you were doing, selling your own house or something along those lines, then you would click off yes there. And now we're back at the checklist again. You need to purchase a sales agreement. You're gonna need your escrow check. You don't always have that immediately. The property disclosure. If you have the listing and, well, actually, I should back up a little bit. If you have, if you have the listing and for some reason down here under the, when you first listed it, you didn't have the property disclosure in here, but you ended up getting one signed by everybody, it's a fully signed property disclosure. You would put it in here, number 6, as it asked for, but you could then skip down and put a fully signed property disclosure down here as well. That's fine too. That happens sometimes. And then the agent synopsis, we're not requiring it for your listings. So you'll see as the file gets closer to closing, I try really hard to go in and check. And if it has that one checked off, still saying it's required, I try to go over and click not required.
And I'm making a note, Beth, do we know that can't be fixed globally in the system?
I don't know. I think
Okay.
that was one that Shelley was going to look into when she was going to see about on the commission tab, if she could asterisk any of those. So I'm not sure where that one stands.
So just so everyone's clear, so we do require the upload of the agent synopsis for the listing, and then and that's just to make sure that the dates are right and the commission offering split is right. We, as Beth just mentioned, we don't require, we can't make the other buyer agent from the other company provide that to us. Okay, that's not really our responsibility to make sure that they have their buyer initial the MLS sheet. A lot of times agents are just sending that with an offer because their company requires it as well, or they're trying to cover their own butt. When you're working with a buyer, we do require the buyer to initial the agent detail. And the reason for that is we want to have a record of what the other company promised to pay because we have occasionally over the years run into situations where the listing agent realizes they made a mistake or something, or whatever the case might be, and they've actually gone into the MLS and changed the co-broke fee. And so we want to have a printout proving what they offered. And furthermore, if you do have, in a lot of cases now, buyer agents are having their buyer cover a little portion of the commission, you know, we just, that creates that opportunity for you to have that discussion with the buyer. Of course, you had the discussion when you signed them up as a buyer, but then when they go under contract and they're initialing that form, they can see that, well, you're only getting, you know, the other company's only offering 2%, so they're going to cover 0.5% or 1% or whatever. So there's generally a really good reason, whether it's state of Maine real estate commission law. That's usually the case. I mean, we try to have our company policy not have a lot of extra fluff in it or a lot of extra requirements that aren't required by the state. If we do require something in our policy, it's because we think it's super important for liability purposes. So there's generally, I know a lot of time agents get frustrated and they wonder why we're being so picky about stuff or why we can't just ignore certain things. And it's, like I said, there's generally always a good reason, and we're looking out for you. We're looking out for ourselves. It's highly unlikely that it would happen. They don't really have the staff for it. But if the real estate commission was ever to, you know, sort of raid the company or come in to do an audit, which they have every legal right to do, they would be going right into Skyslope and start reviewing these documents. And if they weren't right, the company would get in trouble. The individual agent would, you know, possibly be fined or sanctioned. So we are trying to look out for everybody when we do this stuff.
Yeah, I'm not sending, you know, I'm not dinging you guys just because I want to. It's just, I want to make sure you don't end up in that situation. And I will say, there are times that I make mistakes. I will tell you that I work on these sometimes for hours at a time. And after you've looked at file after file after file, sometimes all of the documents start to kind of blend together, and I will miss things, or I will question something and sometimes I have agents actually call and explain why they've done something a certain way, and then I'm totally fine with it. But I don't, you know, I make you know, I will say,
You're
I
human,
make
Beth?
mistakes
I
too.
didn't know you were human. I thought you were a robot.
Yeah.
I have
So,
a question, Beth.
Yep.
If we write notes, you know, how you write us a note?
Yep, yep.
Can we write a note back to you and do you see it?
yes, yes.
That's the most effective
And that
way
actually
to,
helps.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so we can just write in there and you do see it.
Yes, and that helps enormously, because if I say, you know, you didn't do such and such, and maybe you did, but you did it on a different form, and maybe I just missed it on a different form, you know, tell me. It's on the bottom, like sometimes in an extension. Some people will use an addendum to do an extension. Some people will use the bottom of the purchase and sales agreement. And every once in a while I'll miss which one it is. So by all means, write notes back to me.
Another thing that can happen, just because you got away with something one time, like Beth said, she's human, she might miss something. So if she corrects you on something that you know you've done in the past and you got away with it because it got missed, that doesn't mean, you know, we can just let it go indefinitely. Like, it's possible that you might have got away with something on one transaction, but it gets caught on another transaction. And so, you know, we just try to make stuff right, you know, as we catch it, you know. So I would definitely give Beth the benefit of the doubt, but you can always, if you have a question, you can go to your office manager, you can call me, you know, that kind of thing. And, you know, certainly these forms change, we're all learning, even I learn stuff every day. So we're just basically trying to work together to make sure this stuff is right.
I've sat down with a lot of different agents at various times when they just weren't sure what they were doing wrong and why they were doing it wrong. And sometimes it's easier to do a one-on-one. I mean, I know some of your offices, you have a go-to person for that. So use them, you know, if you're not positive, if something is worded right or checked off, you know, whether the right thing is checked off, go and ask. There's nothing wrong with that. So anyway, let's get back here. Your purchase and sales agreement. Oh, actually, sorry. We're gonna go back to the documents to split the documents for your under contract and see from splitting them last time, they all show up as individual documents as well. Here's your purchase and sales agreement.
While Beth is splitting these, I don't know if any of you happened to see just now, or maybe you've seen it before, but there is a get paid now button with a little cursive letter E. That's the logo for the E-commission company. That doesn't really have anything to do with the company. But if you were really desperate for a commission and needed the money, I couldn't quote their rates off the top of my head. It's you know, it's a little expensive, but not complete highway robbery if you're in an emergency, but you can basically get a commission advance, and they essentially work with Skyslope to see that your transaction has been, you know, is in escrow or is under contract and that sort of thing. And they will, we've had one agent use it that I know of, and then Shelley just cuts a check to E-commission at the closing. And so if anyone has any questions about that after class, give me a call.
So on the lead paint disclosure, obviously, if we have a lead paint disclosure under the listing side, you're then going to have a fully signed lead paint disclosure addendum as well. And the thing that gets missed on this most often is putting the buyer's name at the top. The buyer acknowledgement section needs to, one or the other needs to be checked off or initialed off, something along those lines, that so that tells whether they haven't, you know, whether they're doing and been given the amount of time that they need for their investigations.
Yeah, and I'll just cover that real quickly because some agents might not know. I mean, technically it's asking for a check mark. I don't think we would get in trouble with the government if that was initialed, because I do know the one thing that's difficult when you, at least for those of you that use DocuSign, I don't use DigiSign, so I can't speak to that. But a lot of times I will make myself a party to, at least especially when it's my buyer, I'll make myself a signer. And in fact, I'll make myself the first signer of the document before it goes to my buyer. Because I know in DocuSign, if you use the checkbox field, it doesn't become a mandatory field at, you know, when the person is signing. You just have to know that it's there and check it off. So a lot of times knowing that I'll either ask my buyer, most of the time the buyer's not doing a separate lead paint test. So I'll make myself a signer. I'll put the checkbox there and I'll check it off for them before they get it. I'm thinking, did you put an initial there, Beth? Is that what you did? I can't really see it, but
I'm
in the
not
buyer,
sure. I can't really see it either. I know, because I know a lot of people use initials and other people use check marks.
yeah, I don't think an initial would be. I don't have the legal answer on it. Maybe I'll get that. But I would think an initial would be acceptable, that as an acknowledgement, and that would be more effective than, at least in DocuSign, than using the checkbox.
Actually, it is checks. It is check marks there.
Okay, so I'll look into that, because I've noticed that is kind of a glitch. I feel like it's a glitch with DocuSign. I feel like if there's a check mark box, it should be a required field when it goes through the signature process, but it's not.
And then, okay, so then again, at the bottom, make sure that the other party to it signs and the other agent signs. Property disclosure. If your other one is good, then there should be no reason why this one wouldn't be all filled out correct. Helps if I put my fingers on the right keys. Seven to 13 is your escrow. And that's, okay, so that's all of them. So split and assign. So on this, when you're splitting them, that was one of the things that Bill brought up earlier, was that sometimes if you have like three different documents have been going in each section because you weren't going just by the number on the top of the top on the checklist there, if that made any sense. So you've got all of these here. Sometimes if you have the listing and you actually have a customer buyer, you then need to come down to the bottom here, you need a Form 3 for your customer buyer. You need the deed initialed by the buyer if you're working with them, even as a customer. So those two items have to be uploaded. If your buyer is a client, then obviously you might be in a disclosed dual agent capacity at that point. So then you need the Form 3, the deed initialed, and your buyer rep agreement form uploaded here.
I have a question, Beth.
Yep,
So if a contract falls through,
yep.
or you move to a backup offer or something, do you want us to leave that all in there, and where do we put it, in the same section?
You can put it here under all rejected and multiple offer contracts. You can
So
put
we
it
just
here.
delete it in one place and move it to the other? So do we delete it,
Okay, so you're saying if it falls through,
right?
if the transaction falls through, you've got to this point where you've got a contract, you then need to put something, if we're holding, or anybody's holding escrow money, then you need to get an earnest money authorization for release of deposit form signed. In some cases, you might have a withdrawal or a termination form that needs to be signed, the ICA form.
Hey, Beth, I think April might be bringing up something that you mentioned to me like a week ago or something, but if your transaction falls through, of course, everything that Beth said is just true, but if this transaction falls through, then you're going to cancel this transaction. Yes. What we've seen in some cases is that agents try to bring in the new documents for the new buyer and exchange them for stuff in this checklist. Not how you do it. This transaction is going to be canceled. When you cancel it, I don't know where the cancel button is. Beth can tell you that, but when you cancel it, it's going to ask for you to upload some document, an earnest money release or something that makes that a canceled transaction. But then that transaction is done, and then you're going to need to go back into your listing transaction or your listing file and turn it into a transaction again and start over with the new documents and the new buyer. So it's not a matter of replacing, like this isn't the final transaction if it fails.
And what about backup offers? Where do they go?
There's a place in the checklist, and I get that question a lot. Agents will say, well, do I really have to turn those in? Again, legally, the state of Maine Real Estate Commission says that, yes, we are supposed to retain all, backup offers, cancel contracts, that sort of thing. I'll be honest, I know a lot of times agents are getting 10 or 12 offers, and they are not uploading those or turning those in. Again, it's highly unlikely that that would ever, result in a problem, because one of the buyers would probably have to complain to the real estate commission that they thought they should have got it and they didn't. And then, maybe the real estate commission will look into it. But 9 times out of 10, that's never going to become a problem, but Beth's pointing to where you would put those. I do know a lot of you, I think one of the most effective tools for maintaining information is actually Gmail. I mean, perhaps other emails, as well, but you may very well get to the point where you run out of space on Gmail. I wouldn't just be mass deleting old emails and stuff. For $1 a month for pretty much unlimited storage on Gmail, you can maintain all of those communications, all of that paperwork, so that at least you could get to it if you ever had to. So, Skyslope is meant to be a repository, for all this stuff. But whether it's text messages or emails or whatever, those could become evidence in a real estate commission matter. And so, having that stuff backed up on your phone or online is always a good thing.
So just a little question.
Yeah.
Because half of my sent documents are gone from Gmail. I'm new to Gmail. I have my personal, and when I was with the other agency, they had their own. So I've never had to sort of get out there in the generic, having an account there on Gmail. Stuff is missing already. So are you saying that if you pay for an account, they will not evaporate your documents?
Well, I don't know why Gmail would delete your sent messages if you
I don't either, but you'll notice I CC myself on everything now so that I at least get a copy of it.
Yeah. Yeah, we can look at that sometime, but it should all be there. I mean, I've got sent messages from 15 years ago in mine. I mean, I don't know.
Oh, you pay for the platform, right? Or do you?
Well, what I'm saying, at some point you will run out of free space, and I've seen agents that were, a little cheap, and so they would just go in and mass delete stuff, so they didn't have to pay Google $1 a month for, a terabyte of storage or whatever, you get. So I'm just saying, if you ever do fill up your Gmail account, they'll let you know. You'll get an email and it'll say you've run out of space. If you want to continue, storing stuff, then you have to pay. And I would most certainly pay, the $15 a year or whatever it is to get the extra storage, so you don't have to delete stuff. But
thanks. I didn't even know that was a thing. I keep everything in folders on my desktop anyway, but I have 2 terabytes on my computer, my slow running computer. But I don't really like Gmail because I lose stuff. So
I have a question. Who's everybody using? How do we save our text messages?
well, they're just in your phone. I mean, as long as you don't delete.
Can you download them to your phone? Download them to your computer somewhere? What isn't it?
Honestly, that I don't know. I just don't delete stuff off my phone. So I'll go to text someone today and it'll pop up where, some agent from some other company, and I'll see that, last time I texted them was 5 years ago. It's still there. I mean, that's the beauty of the iPhone. I can't speak to other phones, but the beauty of the iPhone is because everything's backed up to the cloud. Anytime you get a new phone, it's all still there. So I don't think it's necessary to download it to your computer, but there might be a way to do that.
I'll just add here. I have a iPhone XR. There are options, at least in my iPhone, there are options to automatically delete old conversations once they get to be 90 or 60 days or whatever. Uncheck that if you want to not have it automatically be deleted, or for something super important. I try not to do it a lot because I get carried away, like having stickies. You have too many, but if it's super duper important where somebody refuses I don't need an inspection, whatever, I just try to certain little things screenshot. Now I have them in my saved photos, but with an iPhone, there is a little option where you want to uncheck that, because stuff will conversations will automatically delete after a certain age.
Good advice. All right, Beth, you're back.
Okay, so, the rest of it is pretty much if you have addendums, specific ones can all go here. This is, I put any other addenda, that we don't have a space for, all go under here. Miscellaneous, I see a lot of you putting, all kinds of miscellaneous stuff under that section. And that's really where it all should go. If it's something you want to keep with the file, I don't monitor it closely as to what's there, because most of the time it's not anything that pertains to me auditing it. So it's kind of your own holding section. I mean, I will pretty much always approve it. If you have a disclosed dual agency situation and you haven't had both your seller and your buyer check off on their listing agreement and the buyer rep agreement that it's okay to do disclosed dual, then you would have to have a whole new agreement signed and put here if you are in that situation. So that's pretty much it for the documents on the checklist. Does anybody have any specific questions, things that maybe you've gotten dinged on by me before that that you didn't understand why, or anything going forward? I know I haven't covered every single thing, and if you think of other questions later on, by all means, email me, ask me. I don't have a problem with that.
Was that all that you had, Beth?
Pretty much, because we've kind of, the things that we've gotten dinged on the most often, we've kind of worked it into the conversation here.
Does anyone have any questions before we cut this class off? All right, well, like Beth said, it's not forever hold your peace. You can follow up with your office manager, admin, me, Beth, and we'll all get through this Skyslope thing together. So
Thank you.
everyone have a great day, and see you on the other side.
Thank you, Beth.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Beth.